And welcome to this episode of Digitally. And we're here today to discuss something super high on everyone's minds, and that is talent in the age of artificial intelligence. Let's take a step back, though. I think it's been, a year now that ChatGPT first came out. And I think just even since then, the amount of progress has just been staggering. We've seen token size go from in the thousands to 32,000 as an example on the last release. We've seen enterprises plow in more and more investment, mindshare, energy into generative AI in the way they can use it to drive productivity, reduce cycle time, get better access to enterprise knowledge and therefore business decisions, and really even drive incremental revenue. And then on the venture capital side, we're all probably on track to spend over $50 billion in venture capital funding just this year. And so as you can see, significant amount of activity that's been going on. But as the world changes into the next phase, and as we go in this journey of pilot to production, many of us have tried and tested and piloted and worked through some of the early kinks. We're now at a stage we're putting into production in large enterprise environments. And as we go through that pilot to production journey, it really just comes down to three things that are top of the list for many of us. It's all about data and getting that right. It's actually about business process and getting the integration and the design and the experience right. And then it's actually about talent. And it's that third topic that I want to pick up today and double click into because I think it's such a critical topic. And there's so many different ways to look at it. And to do that, I'm super excited to bring a longtime colleague, a friend, someone I've worked with and respect significantly, and it's Gianni Giacomelli, away from Berlin, Germany. Gianni, thank you for joining us today.
Andre, it's great to be here. Good to see you.
Fantastic. Well, Gianni, look, let's just get right into the meat of the matter. You know, from an enterprise perspective, we look at talent, we say talent is super critical, we need to get it right. I want you to give me a different lens on the same topic. What comes to your mind?
Well, we kind of figured at this point that machines can do a lot of what humans can do, and we told everyone. That has actually been an interesting time for CEOs who all of a sudden have this new source of resources. The reality, though, is we made so much noise, and people like you and I being at the forefront of that bandwagon. We excited a bunch of people. A bunch of workers are really rearing for shedding all the drudgery in their life, right? With people saying, bring it on. I don't want to be a little robot anymore. Bring the robots in. At the same time, though, we scared a lot of people off. There's a lot of noise out there. There's a lot of people who actually feel that they are a little bit of a cog in the machine, and you know what? That cog may be replaced. So I think it's actually a very different time for talent, and I don't feel that we're talking yet enough about it, and I'd love to have that conversation.
So, Gianni, look, I don't necessarily 100% believe what I'm going to say next, but I want to say something that's going to provoke you and push you a little harder so we can get to the essence of the issue. And so many of us that started a career early on in engineering and computer science, as an example, and I'm dating myself, but back in the day, we used to work with assembly language and machine language, like really low level compute stuff. And then we went through a whole evolution of that, and we're now moved on to object-oriented programming, where you don't have to deal at this kind of macro level of specifics of machine language code, but you can abstract to a higher level and operate in a much more cohesive fashion. And, you know, I don't want to be insensitive to the topic, but isn't the journey the same, which is you just have to abstract one level up and move on? And so I don't take this as literally my point of view, but I want to push you a little bit. Why is this such a big deal?
There's many reasons. One is, by the way, I love the example. Software developers and software engineers know that their expiry date is set 2-3 years into the future. And they know that by that time, they're not moved to a higher ground. Their feet are going to be wet. Everybody else is not that. Right? Everybody works in normal finance job, or marketing jobs, sales jobs, etc. They're the half time between the beginning and the end of their skills is maybe 10 years, maybe 15. They don't want to. They're not. The software people actually don't get it intuitively because they've always been trained to you got to move to the next release. everybody else is not that, right? And now you're coming at it with something that can replace a lot of what they've been doing for 10, 20 years. It's not the same, Sanjay.
Okay, so you're saying, look, this idea of agility or transition may be localized in the population base broadly, and I can see your point there. But really, isn't this a matter of getting the message out, getting the training skill sets, toolkits available, and getting behind kind of focused effort from an enterprise perspective to drive that transition? Obviously, it's not. I'm missing something on purpose, by the way. And I want you to tell us a little bit about what is it that needs to happen from the talent side of the equation, not the employer side of the equation, to get this right.
Well, it's going to take two to tango here. The reality is that most people do not know where to turn. We haven't given them enough guidance. When you hear about machine coming after jobs, look, you and I have been at the forefront of AI for many years, and now generative AI. Do we exactly know where the machine are going to cut, what the frontier is going to be between the human and the machine, how we're going to redesign those business processes? We don't fully know either. And people don't know that either. And the moment they don't know what to learn. Their amount of time is finite, their resources finite. So if you tell them, look, you go learn machine learning, that's clearer. But here we're not saying that because we don't quite know what machines will be able to do. So we need to talk about that in a second, because there's nothing intuitive about the skills that people should learn because they are going to be always human. I don't believe that that's a thing anymore. And I think the more we kind of avoid a conversation with specific guidance, the more people will just sandbag this. At the beginning, it's going to be a little silent, and then it's going to be Luddite style. And if they sandbag it, we're not going to see coming up from bottom up the opportunities for improving work. People will not do it, right? It's just a human nature.
Okay, so you're really saying, listen, we're going out and saying adapt to the new, but we haven't defined the new. And more specifically, at the macro level, for an individual, not as a population, etc., but for one individual, what is their version of the new? So they've got something to focus in on and go after. How do we fix that?
Well, a couple of things. First of all, I think we need to all get out of our, la la land in which we always said that, there are skills that are always human, right? How many, even if you ask ChatGPT, it will tell you that some skills are always human, and it is because it has been trained on old knowledge. It's so funny. You should ask. And so all these things about empathy and about creativity, we've always been told that they're all human traits. Well, if you look at the technology today, we're recording this at the end of this the point in time in which we record. We know the machines can do empathy. There's actually a study out there that I really encourage everybody to have a look at. The basically anonymized transactions, email transactions, on a portal, transactions between patients, healthcare patients, and on the other side, doctors and nurses that were synthetic. Part of the answers were machine-based nurses and doctors. And then they did that to study if human patients would love the empathy that they get from the other side, better or worse. Guess what? Nurses and doctors, on a good day, a good nurse and a doctor is better than a machine. But most doctors and most nurses on most days are worse than the machine. So the reality is that if you have a machine interacting at a human level, empathy with a human, the human actually likes it better, and not knowing that there's a machine on the other side, just saying, hey, this is an interface with something. So machines can do empathy, right? There's no sacred ground anymore. That thing has been, and I think
that's an amazing study. Basically you're saying that bedside manners can actually be programmed in much more consistently in machines than they can be in humans like me and you.
But they can't. They have already, essentially. They're already there. They just need to be calibrated in the right corpus, put in. We're healthcare, we need to be respectful of the thing, but the bedside manners of the thing is that. Right?
Okay, so the holy grail on this was, listen, all this monotonous junk will be taken over, and I'm going to get to do what I do best, which is empathize, make human judgments, be involved in and you're saying even that boundary is now starting to shift.
Yeah, creativity. We do a lot of that at MIT. Creativity. It's not that I believe it's gone. So we need to actually look at what humans will do in a very different way, right? And we work at the Center for Collective Intelligence. For us, humans and machines is what matters. But we need to teach humans to work with machines so that the combo is better, so that the humans still stay relevant. If we don't teach those skills to humans, humans will be irrelevant.
Okay, so look, you've painted a picture that is much more realistic, and I think much broader than perhaps many of us might see from an employer out perspective. So now taking in the perspective from an employee out, so the two takes two to dance. What are some of the things that employers need to be doing to be able to make this work out better?
Well, I think they need to provide the workforce planning that needs to happen. So basically, employers will be able to see the change in the jobs, the tasks in the jobs, and then say how many people, how many skills, right? It's like a supply chain, if you want to think about it. And I think it's super important, I think maybe for this conversation, apart from the workforce planning thing, which is more of an analytical job, what skills do we need to teach? And I would say there's 3-4 things that are important. First of all, even if machines will take some, we still probably need to teach skills that will be taken over by machines to the humans, because they're foundational in the way humans can evolve their thinking, right? Maybe, from a leadership standpoint. We need to stop talking about, please, prompt engineering. Prompt engineering, in many respects, for most of us, will be a solved problem very soon. Very soon. I don't know when, but all this minutiae about prompt engineering, this is going to go away. So yeah, some people will do prompt engineering at the level that most people will never bother doing. I also think that we need to still work on foundational skills. Humans and machines together are better than just machines. Machines still hallucinate. A bunch of people say that generative AI hallucination problem will never fully go away, algorithmically only. You still need to have people, in the example of the doctors and nurses, you still want to have a doctor and a nurse eyeball the answer that the machine is going to provide before the answer goes out. Eyeballing an answer takes 1/10 of the time of writing the answer. So you still have that combination, I think, is going to be powerful. So keep in mind that now we have these machines, everybody becomes a manager. And when you and I became a manager, the first thing we learned how to do is how to triangulate the answers that you got from the people who work for you to figure out what's really true or not. This is the job of the human. We'll need to be able to query machines, put machines one against the other, so that we know if something is true, if something is ethical, if something is logical, right? Machines don't think, and obviously, that combination will be super powerful. So I do think that things like collaboration, project management, change management, right? In this big system thinking, and also critical thinking will still be things that humans will do, but together with a machine. It's not going to be us having a Socratic conversation with each other at a bar. It's going to be, we're going to have these machines and we're going to prompt them and push them.
Yeah, I love that. I think I walked away with such great insights. Number one, as an employer, think about this in terms of a supply chain and be very intentional and analytical about it, so you can lay out the trajectory of skills you need over a period of time and zoom in. I think I got from the fact that really start thinking about sort of one layer up. So, you talked about becoming your own manager, but how do you actually start using AI in an augmentative facility? And if you had those toolkits, how do you actually use that to kind of operate it one layer up? And a lot of that is individual, a lot of that is enterprises have to think through it. I think somewhere in there you mentioned or alluded to the fact that all of us need to get more exposed to it. So get your talent base fully immersed and exposed to generative AI so they can work out for themselves how they kind of make that transition around it. And then I think one other thing I picked up from you finally was kind of be thoughtful about skilling and how you deliver skilling with a very focused strategy so people are able to take advantage of it. And I guess I think the main point I'm walking away with is, confront it, understand it, deal with it, don't let it sit on its own. It's going to take some steering, but if you get through it, it'll be awesome.
100%. I mean, it can be a really good future, but we need to drive it.
Gianni, with that, I just want to thank you again. Obviously, you're reachable on LinkedIn. You're a great supporter and an amazing researcher, and you've done so much blogging on this topic. I welcome our audience to connect with you, and thank you again for joining us.
Thank you, Sanjay.
Take care, Gianni.